Welcome back to Taxpayer Empowerment. My name is Jose Melendez, Campaign Director at the Texas Public Policy Foundation, and today's focus is addressing homelessness in the state of Texas. And I'm joined today by Senator Tan Parker. Senator Tan Parker, welcome to the show.
Well, Jose, what an honor to be with you. Thanks for having me, and thanks for caring about all these critical public policy issues facing Texas. So what a treat to be with you. Thank you. Right here at the convention.
Absolutely. We're live from the Texas GOP convention. So let's talk homelessness. Over the last 10 years, homelessness has increased, or the homeless population has increased in the state of Texas. And a lot of it is due to what was once a good idea, but that hasn't really materialized to any effect, and that's housing first. It came down for the federal government through the Housing and Urban Development Office. But on that note, that office now has a new leader in the form of Texan Secretary Scott Turner. And most recently, they put out a notice of funding opportunity where they're allocating $4 billion, but with a refocus of that office from housing first to the meeting that mental health and self-sufficiency needs of the homeless population. So my question to you is, how should taxpayers evaluate how effective a homeless program is?
Well, first of all, again, Jose, what an honor to be with you. And talking about Secretary Scott Turner is my very good friend. We've been friends for, I think, almost 20 years, and nobody better in that job leading HUD. The president made a great selection and picking Secretary Turner, as I call him, Scotty T.
Scotty T, that's right.
to go and to lead our efforts in this regard. And so we're going to be working very closely hand in hand. And, my whole topic, this focus, if you will, of homelessness, isn't a new one for me here going into the 27th session. We've been working for a few years. We carried a piece of legislation in 24 that, frankly, should have made it all the way through the process. It passed the Senate. It didn't make it to the House, and that's I'm very saddened it didn't make it happen. Frankly, with some dirty lobbying, to be very candid, that blocked it from occurring, but it was a good piece of legislation. And going forward, you'll see the federal government under Scotty T and Texas, under my efforts, this legislation really work to be in alignment and lockstep with regard to what you just said on their focus, which is addressing mental health and addressing the root causes of homelessness. So when you ask me the question about what taxpayers should be judging, what's the criteria whether or not a homelessness program is working or not and effective, it's all about permanent housing for me. It's that simple. I'm a business guy, and I want to have real results. And are we reducing the number of people that are on the streets that are there or not? And so, this constant rotating door where we're not solving the problem, and we still continue to have, hundreds of thousands of people that are in this condition across Texas, it's unacceptable. It can no longer be accepted. And so I just think if you're going to ask me how the taxpayer needs to judge success, how we need to look at what works and what doesn't, we need real KPIs, real metrics, which is permanent housing. And if you're going to be in permanent housing, ultimately it's because you solve the mental health problem. It's what Secretary Turner knows, and I know. You got to solve the mental health issues that are the underlying problem. You got to make certain that people have a job, that they have employment, that they have a roof over their head, therefore, and a meal, so they have the ability to be successful and provide for themselves and their family. If we're doing those things, they'll be off the street. But those are the metrics that we need to judge ourselves by.
On that end, what concerns do you have with these programs that are evaluated based on how many dollars are spent or how many people are served rather than how many people are exiting the homelessness space?
Look, that to me is ridiculous. That whole concept of the number of people that we've served without having anything measurable. Look, if we're not measuring it, if we're not monitoring things, then you know what? We're never going to solve the problem. I need to be able to monitor, have data, have real key performance indicators on how we're doing to make good decisions with the Texas taxpayer dollar, right? I mean, at the end of the day, I'm here to be able to protect the taxpayers of Texas and to make responsible decisions with their resources. I'm a steward of. It's their money, it's not my money. And so I want to understand that we're getting the greatest return possible, which means permanent solutions, not number of people served or what have you. Those are all silly, absurd data points. They mean nothing. We've got to have real metrics to be able to judge how we're progressing and whether or not we're achieving any degree of success or not.
So how can Texans, taxpayers, ensure that their government isn't just simply throwing money at the problem, but instead they're finding real solutions to us continuing to perpetrate the homelessness problem?
Well, this is what I'm talking about. I want real metrics. I want to put in place real metrics. I want to know the number of people that are homeless on a dashboard in Dallas and Houston and Austin, all the major cities. I want to know how many beds are available. I want to know how many people we've gotten out of this nightmare of homelessness and give them a chance to have a second chance at life, so to speak. I want to see real data. And so that's what it comes down for me, Jose, is I want to see in all the things I'm espousing a dashboard, an executive dashboard that we'll be able to know happening in every city, major city and county and the state, how many people are dealing with homelessness, how many beds are available, where they are in the system, where they are with regard to this path of being permanently housed because their mental health situation's been under control and they have skills now to provide for themselves. But fundamentally, it's a mental health issue, as I said earlier, that we understand that in Texas, I think, uniquely. Unfortunately, since COVID, and all of our young people being isolated on the phones and isolated away from one another, we've got a rampant level of homelessness and mental health, I think, disease tied directly to all that isolation. And it's made the problem worse, not better. And so we can throw dollars all day long and talk about how much money we're spending and so forth, but those are all wasted if we don't have some real measurable criteria.
Absolutely. When I think about businesses, families, and residents of the communities, specifically the city of Austin, you see a lot of public encampments around the city. So how can lawmakers, how can everyone be compassionate yet think about public safety and quality of life when it comes to that issue?
Well, look, at the end of the day, as a person of faith, okay, I approach this as a conservative Republican, as a person of faith as well, and trying to understand how I can help these people, right? Sure. All of these people were created in the image and likeness of God, first and foremost, okay? So I'm sorry, it is not the compassionate thing to do to allow a human being created in God's image and likeness to be able to sit there and die in their feces. That is absolutely unacceptable. And so we have got to change the whole narrative around allowing them to deny the services because they need help. And we've got to ever so slightly, is what my legislation calls for, is to ever so slightly at the front end of the process, tweak the commit process to where a first responder can go and take one of these individuals that needs help and get them off the street and not have them deny that happening, and then not give them triage in a hospital, emergency room, or in a jail, but rather a very simple, basic triage facility to understand whether or not they need to be getting full-time assistance or not, or whether or not they can return to being back in the community after a few days, right? Following traditional and normal due process. Sure. We have to take them through that process. But if they don't need permanent assistance, not permanent assistance, that's wrong, I misspoke. If they don't need longer term assistance to get their mental health situation under control and then go back immediately to civilization, well, we need to then hold their hand for a period of time and get them to a Christian ministry, get them some help from a philanthropic group that's supporting them, various programming that can help them get job skills, get the counseling they need, right? Medication they perhaps need to be able to feel better and to do better, and to have a second chance at life. And so if we do those things, I think we'll be successful. And so I just believe that as opposed to letting those folks go back without anybody helping them, it's just a never-ending rotating cycle where you're throwing dollars after dollars and say you're serving people, but you're serving the same people over and over again, Jose. And that's not the solution. Those individuals need to get some real assistance to a group that can help them if they don't need a longer term program that would be offered in conjunction with the local municipality, a ministry, and the state of Texas assistance.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up our conversation, when you look at different Texas cities, a lot of them have taken different approaches to solving the homelessness problem. And I think of Haven for Hope down in San Antonio. What lessons can we learn from what's worked and what hasn't worked?
Well, it's a great question. Look, I think that Haven for Hope in San Antonio is the model, frankly, for Texas and for the nation. All my legislation is really modeled around Haven for Hope because that centralized model is spot on. Sure. You need to have one place where you have moms that are homeless, where you have veterans that are homeless, where you have women that have been horrifically abused, that they have the opportunity to get hope and healing, all in one place, where you have the skill sets, where you have workforce training, where you have counseling, where the nonprofit community can come, if you will, and provide support. And folks that want to engage in volunteering know where to go. And so my legislation says in the major counties of the state, we need to have 2 centralized services facilities, just like Haven for Hope. The state of Texas can throw in land for that building. The state of Texas can throw in some resources to have that kind of capability. And like I said, ever so slightly change the commit process on the front end so that we can actually help these people that are there on the streets tonight. That's how we do it. As conservatives, as people of faith, we have to take these kinds of actions. And I think it's important as a Republican. And, you know, I'm blessed to be the Republican leader of our caucus in the Senate. We've got to lead on issues like this. We can't just step back and say, we're going to walk away from it, or allow the Democrats to put in place a solution that will never work. We need to put in place common sense, business-focused concepts that are efficient and appropriate uses of taxpayer dollars for the good of society. And that's what we'll do with real metrics. I want to be judged. I want anything that I carry, I want to be judged with regard to real metrics for performance improvement. And again, as I said, that comes down to making certain that these individuals have gotten the mental health assistance that they need, that they have now a skill to be able to be productive, and they now have the ability to live independently. That's what success looks like for me. That will have large numbers, dramatic reductions in the number of people that are homeless in Texas, not just in the big cities, but anywhere in the state of Texas. That's what success looks like, and we need to put those metrics in place to measure it.
Absolutely. Senator Parker, thank you for being a champion for taxpayers, for leading on this issue, and for joining us here today.
Well, Jose, what an honor. I appreciate all that you do. Thank you for your leadership at TPPF. Thanks for caring about these issues, because again, as conservatives, we have to focus on these topics, and we have to lead with purpose. And I feel like we're on a good path, because at the end of the day, these are God's children, and we need to help them. We need to do everything in our power to help them have the chance to have a second chance in life, but to do so in an effective way with taxpayer dollars. And that's what we're trying to accomplish.
Absolutely. Thank you again for your leadership.
Hey, what an honor.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Jose. Good to see you.
That'll do it for this episode of Taxpayer Empowerment. We'll see you next time.